Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining our webinar Advice from Alumni, our New Zealand edition. My name is Kate Hilby, and I'm the Associate Director of Enrollment Management for TEAN. And today I'm joined by some of our amazing alumni that I've had the opportunity to work with as well. And they're going to share more about what you should know before studying abroad in New Zealand. And then also with us today from TEAN is my wonderful colleague Nico, who will be monitoring the chat and dropping some helpful links as we go. As well as answering any questions that you may put through the chat. So feel free to drop any questions in as we're going along as well. So before we hear from our alumni, let's take a quick look at all that New Zealand has to offer. So why we love New Zealand, so many reasons, right? So the culture, so whether you're roaming around in nature or visiting one of New Zealand's cities, you'll recognize how respectful and positive Kiwis are. This profound understanding of warmth and open-mindedness and kindness can be traced back to the Maori, who are the indigenous people of New Zealand. And there's an incredible sense of community in New Zealand. So everyone's super friendly and welcoming. So making friends with locals is easy. Next is our island vibe. So New Zealand also has more of a laid back kind of feel to it. It's a laid back country that really prioritizes work-life balance. So it's a great destination if you're looking for a little bit slower pace. And next, wanderlust, what we all have after traveling, right? So you can explore the North and South Islands to experience all of the jaw-dropping views New Zealand has to offer. And it's really an easy place to travel, which students really love. So you can explore many different places. And then finally, city life. So one of the best parts about living in New Zealand is its different cities and towns. They each offer their own unique experience, and there's really something on offer for everyone, which we'll get into a little bit later. So next is orientation. So one of the highlights. So all TEAN New Zealand students will kick off their semester in New Zealand with a 5-day orientation in beautiful Queenstown, as you can see some photos here of the Milford Sound excursion. So this is included in your program. So during orientation, you'll get an introduction to life in New Zealand, get set up to have a successful semester abroad by attending info sessions, getting to know the other TEAN students, meeting your TEAN resident staff. And you'll also be introduced to Maori culture and history and spend a day in Fiordland National Park in Milford Sound, which is what those photos are from. And in my opinion, Fiordland National Park in Milford Sound is one of the most stunning places that I've ever been. So it's really a highlight. And after this webinar, you can get an inside look at what orientation looks like with TEAN. And Nico's gonna drop a link to the video in the chat. So next, after you spend your 5 days in Queenstown with TEAN, you'll go to your host city, so program options. So with 6 cities and many host universities to choose from, there's really something for everyone, like we mentioned before. If you're looking for a busier metropolitan way of life, then Auckland is really the place for you. If you're curious about New Zealand's quirky artsy scene, you'll want to be sure to check out Wellington. If you're searching for a smaller university vibe like college town, Dunedin is definitely the move for you. If you want to be close to both like the mountains and the ocean, you'll want to check out Christchurch. There are so many city options varying in size and what they have to offer that you're really bound to find the perfect fit. And really, no matter what city and campus you choose to call home, you're going to be close to all of New Zealand's natural, beautiful gems. All right, so help along the way. So on the US side of things, from the time you apply through your departure and even beyond departure, you'll have a dedicated program manager who's going to guide you along the application and pre-departure process. They're going to answer any questions you may have and continue to move you along in that process. And then our New Zealand team is incredibly robust. It includes our in-country staff members, who are ready to support you from the moment you get off the plane until you're heading back home. And they're always happy to lend an ear, share their favorite local spots, along with providing health and safety support if needed. They also plan excursions and activities that are included in your program fee. So a great way to kind of experience that local culture. All right, funding facts. So TEAN offers a variety of scholarship opportunities, and we also list out external scholarships that may be available to you. So it's certainly worth checking those out on our website. Your study abroad office may have scholarship options for you, and we also recommend that you visit your home university's financial aid office to discuss what aid options might be available for studying abroad as well. All right, so what's next? So what's next if you haven't already applied? I do strongly encourage you to set up an advising appointment. our team can help you narrow down the options from the program that fits your needs, and just kind of talk through things with you. And Nico's dropping a link right now if you'd like to book an appointment. Once you have chosen your program, you'll need to apply with us as well as with your home university. So be sure to stay in touch with your study abroad office at your home institution along the way, as they can be really helpful to you like throughout the whole process as it relates to your home university side of things. And then once you apply, our program managers will be there to answer any questions you have. All right, so advice from alumni, the reason you're all here, right? If you're just starting out or already enrolled in your program, we do think it's always helpful to talk to someone who's, been there, done it, and has experienced what you're about to experience. So we're happy to connect you with one of today's panelists or someone from our alumni network to answer your questions. Nico's going to drop another link in the chat so you can fill out a form to be connected directly with one of our alumni. We're also happy to connect you with someone that shares a similar identity to you if you want to ask them about their personal experience and advice. All right, so meet our alumni. So let's meet our alumni who have graciously given us their time to talk through their experiences. So let's first do some quick introductions. So if you could share your name, your home university, and where and when you studied abroad, that would be great. And let's go ahead and start with Megan.
Hi, I'm Megan. I go to Rollins College in Orlando. I studied abroad in Dunedin last spring.
Fabulous. Thanks. Ashlyn, what about you?
Hi guys, I'm Ashlyn. I go to Missouri State University and I also studied in Dunedin last spring with Megan.
And Connor, what about you?
Hi guys, I'm Connor. I go to the University of Iowa and I studied abroad last spring in Wellington.
I'm also an Iowa alum, go Hawks. And sometimes we're able to have students who are currently abroad join our panel, which is super exciting. So Leah, can you tell us in New Zealand where you studied and are currently studying?
Yeah, hi. I go to University of Tampa in the States, and then I go to Wellington in New Zealand. I came in the spring and I've stayed for my second semester, so I'm still currently here.
So awesome. You loved it. You had to stay an extra semester. Perfect. Okay, so let's start with an easy one. So why did you choose your particular city in New Zealand? And Leah, we'll kick it back over to you. Why do you choose Wellington?
So I did a bit of research and all of the options, and Wellington just felt like it fit with my personality, I guess, the best. It's like a very quirky, fun city. There's a lot going on, clubs and nightlife. And then you're like right next to the mountains and the water, and I feel like you have a lot of access to do kind of whatever you want, like wide variety of activities.
Awesome. Connor, what about you? Why Wellington?
Yeah, part of it was the school. Victoria is a really great school for film and writing, which is what I study. But also same with Leah, I just really liked kind of the vibe and the artsy kind of city life. I liked that there was it, whenever you look up Wellington, like there's all these different festivals and stuff that are going on. So it felt like every weekend, like there's always something to do. And it also felt like the right size for me. I don't love like massive cities, but I wanted somewhere that still felt like it had like, that community and things to do all the time and stuff like that. So Wellington was a really great balance of not too big, but lots of stuff going on.
Perfect. Yeah, it's like feels like a city, but it's still like walkable and manageable. That's great. Ashlyn, what drew you to Dunedin?
So like Kate mentioned earlier, Dunedin is very much a college town, and from researching beforehand, I saw that it was mostly populated by students, which was something that was really important to me because I grew up in Missouri in a really small town, and I came to Springfield, Missouri for college, and that's also a college town, so it's something that I was familiar with, but it's also a coastal town, and I've never lived by the beach before, so that was a good change of pace for me.
Yeah, nice change. Megan, what made you choose Dunedin?
So also like Ashlyn, I wanted to be by the beach. I love the beach. I'm a marine bio major, so being by water was important to me. I knew I wanted to go to the South Island because it's more nature focused instead of like a city. And also my college only allowed us to go to Dunedin, so that just made my choice for me.
Made it a bit easier to narrow down your options then. Awesome. So even after you decided where you wanted to go, studying abroad can be a little daunting, like the whole kind of like process and going overseas. So Megan, what was your biggest concern leading up to your program?
My biggest concern was, I would say, leaving my family for a very long time. I've never been like more than like a 2-hour flight away from my family, so being like an 18-hour time difference was a big shift. But I was able to manage that and find specific times in the day when I could talk to my family, even with the big time difference.
Yeah, and with New Zealand, it's like pretty much as far away as you can get. So really kind of finding that working with those time zones so you can still connect with family and friends, that's really important. And we do know that FOMO can be really real for students studying abroad, like both for the home university and being abroad. So it works both ways. But Connor, do you have any advice for students who are on the fence of going abroad?
Yeah, I guess one of the things that really pushed me to do it, and then I think um is a really just an important thing to think about, is that when else in your life, at least soon in your life, are you going to be able to do something like this again? For me, even specifically study abroad last semester was the last semester that I would have had the opportunity because of how the screenwriting track is at Iowa. I have specific classes that I have to take the rest of my time here. And then after that, I'm going in the film industry. I'm gonna be working 12-hour days every day. Like it's a really intense industry to be in. And so I knew that, traveling is something that I really value. Um, and I didn't know if I was going to get an opportunity like this again. And so that was, I think, really what pushed me to do it then, was just that, it was an experience I really wanted, and I didn't think I was going to get it, soon again.
Yeah. Well, maybe being in the film industry, you'll be led back to New Zealand, right? There's a
Yeah,
lot of films
maybe.
made in New Zealand. Leah, same to you. What was your main concern when it came to studying abroad?
I think I was quite intimidated by the process of like getting comfortable and feeling like relaxed and safe in a new place, like really far from home, and just like meeting friends and kind of settling in. I think that's kind of intimidating to like know that you're gonna have to find this random place in the world and make it home for a little bit. Um, but obviously it worked out super well because I'm still here and I love it and I feel super at home here. I think the culture in general and just the overall energy of people here is really welcoming. People are super duper friendly, and like everyone's just like comes to you with basically open arms and wants you to like have the best experience. I live at a hall and I feel like they were like so inclusive towards like people studying abroad and really wanted everyone to like feel like they were at home and were safe and had all like access to the things that they needed. So that worked out really well.
Great. Yeah. And you kind of touched on something like making friends, which is a question we get and the concern we get from a lot of students. So let's talk a little bit about making friends. So sometimes students join different university and social groups once they're settled in to make friends on their campus. So Ashlyn, can you tell us about some of the groups you joined and how it helped you find kind of like your people and your group of friends?
Yeah, so at the University of Otago in Dunedin, where I went, they had an event called Tent City, and it was basically a club fair at the beginning of the semester that got us really connected with a lot of the clubs there. And there was a tramping club, so like a hiking club that I was really interested in. So I signed up for that, and I met a couple people through there actually that I was able to go and explore on the weekends with. And I also studied through ISA Veritas, which is the Christian missions side of ISA. And through that, I got plugged in with a church that led me to a great group of locals that welcomed me with open arms and took me exploring on the weekends because, like, they had cars, they know the good spots. So, my advice would be getting with the locals.
Good advice. Good advice. And Megan, what about you? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I? Let's see. Sorry about that. Megan, how did you go making friends or finding your crew?
For me, I I knew a few people from my school that went to Dunedin too, but I wasn't like really good friends with them before I left. But through the orientation process, I was able to meet a lot of other people through TEAN that was going to Dunedin. So Ashlyn was one of them, and so we became friends. I also met people in my classes. So I took science classes, so we had labs, so you have lab partners, and so you get to know people through that. So I would really just say try to talk to people in your classes. And because everyone's different, and it's very interesting to learn everyone's different stories and how you all fit together.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and we always kind of give the advice of like never say no. Well, sometimes say no, it depends on the situation. But like if a Kiwi asks you to go for a coffee, or you're a classmate that you want to study, do you want to study together? Like always say yes, because then you can start developing those friendships and nurturing those relationships too. So once you were settled in, let's talk a little bit about travel. So were you able to explore the region, and if any advice for students looking to explore? Ashlyn, let's go ahead and start with you on this one.
Yeah, that was one of my main concerns before going was, am I going to be able to get around the island very easily? I knew that they had public transportation, but that's not always the most reliable thing. And as I mentioned earlier, I was able to meet up with some locals who had cars and would let us borrow their car for the weekend trip, or they would take us with them. And then driving was also concerning because it's the opposite side of the road and the opposite side of the car. So it was something to get used to for me personally. But yeah, so making friends who have cars and know the area was really good for me. And then also New Zealand has this really cool public transportation called the inner city bus. So it takes you from major cities to other major cities for pretty cheap. So I was able to study to travel around the country a lot through that as well.
Fabulous. Yeah. And we definitely, one of the nice things about like most of the housing for our universities is that you'll live with local students as well. So definitely recommend finding friends that have cars so they can drive you. We really don't recommend driving in New Zealand for safety reasons. So like Ashlyn mentioned, other side of the road and that sort of thing. So definitely finding those Kiwis that have cars and can take you everywhere you want to go and know all like the local hidden spots too is fabulous. Leah, what about you? How was your travel, or were you able and still able to explore the region?
Yeah, totally. I feel like I've been able to go like a good bit of places, honestly, especially in the North Island. The inner city buses, which Ashlyn mentioned, are like really helpful, to be honest. I've planned a lot of trips using the buses. And then Wellington in specific has buses that go throughout the city and a train. So public transportation within Wellington's great. And then around Wellington, you can take the buses and the trains, which is nice. And then I've taken a couple flights. There's also a ferry from the North Island to the South Island that goes from Wellington to Picton. So I took the ferry over and then like was able to travel the South Island once I took the ferry, which was really awesome. And then I was able to go to Australia as well, which was super cool. So whole bunch of travel.
Awesome, awesome. And Megan, what about you? Do you have any advice for students looking to explore the region or all of New Zealand in general?
I'd definitely say travel as much as you can. I was able to go to all three New Zealand islands and Australia while I was abroad. And your resident director, so mine was Dee, and she was amazing. She always gave us different places that we should try, different places we should go. So I would definitely hear them out. Also the teen trips that they have, like weekend trips, I would definitely go on those because they're free to you with your tuition that you're already paying. And it's a real cool way to get to know the specific spots that are really cool near your campus.
Awesome. Good advice. And Connor, finally, for you, do you have any advice for students looking to travel around and explore the region, or what was your experience like?
Yeah, I guess because a lot of people kind of hit on the actual mechanics, logistics of it. I'll echo Leah that Wellington has a really great bus system, train system. We also went to Australia together. And so planes are pretty easy to figure out there. There's some like cheaper airlines that, because they're such short flights, like you don't need, a super like luxurious flight. You can get places pretty quickly, which is nice. But I would also say, like, really at the beginning of your journey abroad, while you're kind of making friends, also try to find people that you think you'd be like good traveling with. It really, really makes a difference on if you travel well with the people that you're doing these trips with, because you're staying in hostels, you're exhausted, like you're doing so much walking, and it's so fun and rewarding. But it's a lot of planning and a lot of like figuring all the mechanics out and all of that. So definitely, like, when you go, just also be thinking about like who you might want to, do your mid-try break with. Who do you feel like you really click with and get along with and are on the same page with? Because that's really, really going to make a difference in that.
Perfect. Good advice. Okay, moving on to a little bit more serious topic and, putting the study and study abroad, the academics. So campus life and coursework can look pretty different from what we're used to here in the States. Ashlyn, can you talk to us a little bit about what the University of Otago was like in comparison to your home university?
Yeah, so the main difference that I noticed was the course structure. So here in the States, I'm used to a lot of busy work, a lot of little assignments that help me rack up points throughout the semester. But at the University of Otago, they took grade on the midterm and the final, and maybe like one or two essays, and that was it. So like if you did bad on that and you didn't study and you tanked your grade, then there really wasn't a way to get it back up, which was something that was concerning for me at the beginning. And I had to adjust the way that I studied and like how much time I dedicated to school because of that.
Yeah, it can be a big adjustment to go from like lots of smaller assignments and participation and that sort of thing in the US to then having like a midterm and a final. So that's something we definitely go over during like the course selection process and then during orientation too, so we can kind of help prepare you for that big change too. So Leah, same to you. How does Victoria compare to your home university?
So I'm studying environmental science, and Vic has an awesome program for environmental science. I've taken some really cool courses here. Something I really like that they do in their courses here is they have like each lecture or like a group of lectures within that course are all taught by different lecturers. So I've had maybe like 6 or 7 people presenting and lecturing about their unique subject and topic within environmental science. And that's been really, really cool and like a great opportunity to learn more and like more research from different people. Whereas in the States, I feel like you have one person that's in charge of the course and that's all you kind of hear from the whole time. So I guess a little bit more flexibility and understanding of like, at least for me, that there was other people presenting and maybe you weren't connecting with the same person routinely. We also have tutorials, which is a bit different. So at Vic, it was like once a week you'd meet with that class in a smaller group sort of session, and they'd work with you like privately on some like how your assignments are kind of coming along, which is actually really, really nice. But that's not really an option in the States. Like I have never had a tutorial in the States. And then on top of that, I guess Vic's like class sizes were a bit larger than the University of Tampa. So that was a bit of adjustment getting like used to bigger class sizes. But I think them having tutorials is quite helpful because then you break off into smaller groups at one point throughout the week and kind of are able to work through things in a smaller environment.
Yeah, great. Yeah, and it also depends on like what university you're coming from or college in the US too. So you might find it very different. You might find it, similar or, small changes, things like that. So yeah, definitely the academic component can be a challenging in terms of like the difference and kind of getting used to that. Yeah, change, but it's all part of, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone and learning while you study abroad, which is awesome. Thank you for your feedback on the course part. So last but not least, students always talk about what a life-changing experience studying abroad can be. So what was that moment for you that you'll never forget? And Leah, let's start with you.
So as Connor said before, we went to Australia together. I've also had like so many moments within New Zealand that have been continuously occurring, but I guess the biggest one for me was when we were in Australia. We went to scuba dive at the Great Barrier Reef, and Connor can tell you, I like spent the whole day like in tears, crying, and I was so emotional. I was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever done, and I'm never gonna do anything cooler. And so that was like absolutely incredible. The opportunity to do that was like amazing. And as like an environmental science student, and I'm like involved in the scuba club at Tampa, I was just like, oh, I can't wait to go home and tell everybody and show them photos of like, I literally went to like the coolest dive spot in the world, basically. So that was like absolutely insane, and I'd highly recommend getting to do that if you're into that.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, the Great Barrier Reef too, like being in such close proximity to New Zealand relative to the US. It's a, New Zealand's a great region to be able to travel to some other places in the South Pacific too. Connor, what about you? What's your life-changing moment?
Yeah, so for me, I guess the one that kind of like stands out to me in my head was I was able to go to the Maoriland Film Festival just outside of Wellington. Uh and to me that was just like a really cool exploration of like a culture that I wasn't really familiar with at all before I got to New Zealand. Um and being able to interact with that culture in a language that I sort of understand, that being film. Um, and so yeah, it was just like I think a moment of like people coming together and like building a community in a way that I have just never experienced in the US. And it really, really like broadened my understanding of, community and um like other cultures and like what international even means. And yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing and something you'd really like never get to experience here in the US. So that's
Right.
incredible. Megan, let's kick it over to you. What was your life-changing moment?
For me, I would say it was definitely going to Stewart Island, which is the smallest New Zealand island, um, off the coast of the South Island, so the closest to Antarctica. I saw so much wildlife there. At one point, I was on a boat and I saw like 60 albatrosses, which was just really cool because not like you see albatrosses every day. Um, but probably my biggest moment there was going outside at night and seeing the Milky Way. Um, that was just amazing. Like I took pictures of it, but like seeing it in real life was like unlike anything I'd ever seen.
That's incredible. Yeah. Stewart Island is, it can be hard to get to, but it's definitely worth the travel. Maybe not as hard from like Dunedin as it would be from some of our other locations, but definitely a really special experience to get to go to Stewart Island. And Ashlyn, we'll wrap up with you. What was your life-changing moment?
I think the entire study abroad experience was definitely a big life-changing moment, but one specific time that I can think of is I took a camping trip on a weekend with a bunch of friends, and we went to Fiordland National Park, which Kate touched on a little bit at the beginning, in Milford Sound, and just how beautiful it is. And on our way home, we were driving down this like super curvy back road, and we saw a sign off the side of the road that said Lake Marion hike or tramp is what they call it in New Zealand. And it said it was like an hour long. So we were like, okay, fine, we'll do it. Like a last little hoorah before we go back into classes for the week. And so we pull off on the side of the road and we start going down this track, and we were all exhausted, and the track was a little overgrown. So it took us probably longer than an hour. But at the end of the track, you go out into this, it's like an opening in the trees, and there's mountains on either side. And then Lake Marion is like crystal clear, and it's got the reflection of the mountains. And it was just the most prettiest thing that I've ever seen in my life. And I think in that moment, it was like, wow, this is studying abroad. This is what going to New Zealand means. Like it was something that I'll always remember.
Yeah, an incredible, just kind of like impromptu, incredible moment that you'll never forget. So, and like, if you don't know Lake Marion, Google it. It's beautiful, like Ashlyn said. So if you get to New Zealand, you'll definitely have to check it out. And even one of our colleagues, Betsy in marketing, who's set all of this awesome webinar up for us, that she studied in New Zealand, and that's one of her, not regrets, but still on her bucket list to get to Lake Marion. So that's awesome, Ashlyn, that you got to experience that. Let's see, we can kind of check out the chat. But I did just want to thank everybody for joining us, especially our amazing alumni panelists, Ashlyn, Megan, Connor, and Leah. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences with us. It's so valuable to hear from alum of the program. So we just really appreciate you taking time out of your busy university schedules to share your experiences. And thank you everybody for joining the session. And I know there may be some questions in the chat, so we'll take a look at those and we can get back to you, or feel free to set up advising sessions and that sort of thing too. So super excited to hopefully be working with many of you to get you over to amazing New Zealand, one of my favorite places in the whole world. Thanks so much for attending, everyone. Take care.